there's a beautiful word that quite a few people have been using this, and it's quite correct. It says AI fluency, right? And I think that's what boardrooms need to now develop, and they need to spread that across their organization. So don't make AI the job of your IT function; you will fail. Educate everybody in the organization around AI and make everybody fluent on AI, because that's when you will, accelerate your growth. But that means money spent immediately without an immediate return.
Welcome to the CTO Compass podcast. I'm your host, Mark Wonghoor, tech strategist and executive coach. In every episode, we meet tech leaders, from startup CTOs to enterprise CIOs, to explore what it means to lead in tech today. They share their stories and their lessons so that you can navigate your own journey in tech. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello everyone, today I'm joined by Niranjan Sridhar, a global transformation leader with more than 25 years of experience, helping organizations unlock value through technology. He was born in India and he's lived and worked across 5 continents and 9 different countries. Niranjan brings a truly global perspective to leadership. He has held CIO and transformation leadership roles at private equity-based businesses and global consumer brands like Lipton, JDE Peet's and CarNext. He led 9-figure carve-outs, digital transformation and carve-ins. Most recently, he was the CIO at Lipton, and Niranjan guided the company through a historic carve-out from Unilever, standing up a clean digital core from applications to infrastructure, all the way from scratch. Today, he's the founder of Foundry, a firm dedicated to co-creating experience for a better tomorrow with a focus on transformation, advisory, and innovation. Full disclosure, Niranjan and I have known each other for 10 years. We were close colleagues for 5 years at JDE, and recently we worked together at Lipton. And what I love about him, he's not just a technology guy, but he's actually a very purpose-led leader. We're going to talk about his journey today, the lessons that he learned from running large transformations, AI, of course, in the future of business, and why he thinks that the journey is more important than the destination. So, Niranjan, let's dive in.
Absolutely.
First, before we do anything, give us a little introduction about yourself.
Firstly, Mark, thanks for having me on this podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you in a very different setting than what I guess we are used to having a conversation, but I'm sure we're going to enjoy this. In terms of my journey, right? I mean, I'm not going to, if I start to narrate it, it's probably going to take the whole day and we don't have so much of time, right? But if I try and break it down, Mark, for me, my journey has been about 3 things: curiosity, change, and impact. And the reason I say it that way is it is curiosity, because of which I left my career in audit, accounting, corporate finance, and moved into technology way back in 2003. It is the same curiosity because of which, uh, I have, even in my career after that, I have changed organizations, I've changed what I have done, and have done different kinds of things in those last 25 odd years. The first 10 years after I moved or changed my path out of finance was all with Accenture. And it was doing these transformations and changes for consumer goods companies like Sara Lee, like SAB Miller. And that's when I also traveled a lot. So I lived in Malaysia and Singapore and Indonesia, Hong Kong, Australia, South Africa, and then I moved back to India, of course. But it was all about change and it was about impact to the business when I was doing this. And then at a point in time in 2015, I moved to the Netherlands and have been in the Netherlands since then, with JDE before, and then CarNext and Lipton. And again, all of that, the common thread is in each of those companies, JDE, CarNext, and Lipton, I was there at moments which were linked to some kind of a carve out or M&A. So these were pivotal moments in the organization, right? And that's been the common thread. So somehow I would say my journey has always been about turning inflection points into opportunities. And through those opportunities, I have learned a lot, but I've traveled a lot as well. But yeah, I've learned a lot as well. And it's never been a straight line. It's not a ladder. It's more like a lattice. So it's going zigzag.
That's a very interesting story. And still, like you said, you ended up in these businesses at these pivotal moments, and you use those moments as to turn those into successes. Still, what are the things that you believe that you did, or the decisions that you made that put you in those positions and allowed you to make a success from those moments?
So, um, you know, the reasons why I was there in those moments, right? So, for example, sometimes it's also coincidence, but there's a story behind each of them, right? For example, if you say, "Hey, how did I get into JDE?" Honestly, this is now 2014, and I was in Accenture, and I was chasing the dream of becoming a partner in Accenture. And then my mentor in Accenture one day asked me, "Hey, what would you do differently as a partner?" And that question, I found it quite profound, and I could not answer that question, right? So that led to me quitting Accenture one fine evening and then trying to discover, hey, what's life beyond becoming a partner in Accenture? And then discovering JDE. And then the journey completely changed, right? Driving transformation across different business functions for the largest coffee company, of largest pure play coffee company in the world, working alongside you, right? And in numerous of those transformations. But life was completely different after that, right? The same happened almost around in 2019 when somebody told me, "Hey, you will never be a CIO in the Netherlands," right? And when this person told me that, that triggered me to say, okay, you know what? I now need to work on the gaps because probably this person is right. But then I need to understand what the gaps are, plug those gaps, and prove otherwise. And that's how this whole path towards CIO started. It was not that I always wanted to become a CIO, right? I was enjoying what I was doing, but I got triggered, and then I said, well, let's make sure we plug the gaps, and then we see what it takes to become a CIO. I mean, I've been lucky to have now been a CIO two times, but again, it's those. There have been trigger moments where I've made some decisions, and then it's always happened from there. The third piece, Mark, around 2018, I did a leadership coaching or education at INSEAD in France. And that for me was one of the pivotal change moments in my journey, right? Because when I did that, I realized, wow, I have so many areas that I need to improve as a person and as a leader. And both that educational exercise at INSEAD plus the guidance I got during and after from my coach, right? I think that has helped me in not only in the journey but making decisions at the right moments in this journey.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So, in each of those points, there was an outside person, a mentor or an advisor, or maybe the opposite in the case of the person that told you that you were never going to become a CIO in the Netherlands. A discussion you had that really set you to think and yeah, make the decisions to move on to the next phase.
Yes, yes.
Interesting.
So going back to when you said the journey and the destination, so each of these have, for me, are pit stops in my journey. The journey is still on. A CIO is not a destination; it's just a pit stop that somebody said you cannot, so you won't be able to stop there, and I managed to stop. So now I'm on to probably my next pit stop, right? But yeah, it's a journey, and as long as I'm enjoying the journey, then there'll be numerous of these pit stops that will come on the journey. But the journey matters more. If I look at them as a destination, then what do I do once I get there?
It's a very good question. And indeed, I think you've proven them wrong because you were a CIO at Lipton in the Netherlands last couple of years. After that, after you left, you joined several startups as an advisor, but you also started Foundry, your own company. So, what is that? Now, after Lipton and starting your own business, what are your future plans?
Uh, it's a very interesting question, but it's also a tough question. So for me, I've always believed that what I want to do is to co-create experiences for better tomorrow, right? It's not about implementing a technology or improving a process, but it is to co-create because I can't do it alone. So it's always with somebody, and it always needs to make that 1 degree shift where it's tomorrow is better than today. and the day after will be better than tomorrow, right? So that's always been the ethos behind my thinking. Now, after I left Lipton, I felt, okay, why don't I do what I really like, which is to focus on impact versus the title, to be able to work with people where I enjoy the chemistry of working, and make a real difference, right? Uh, and all of those things led me to say, okay, why don't I start Three Foundry? And Three Foundry then is all about co-creating experiences for better tomorrow, but it is at the intersection of structure and spark, as I call it, right? And why I say that you can call it the yin and yang, you can call it the bimodal things. People can give it whatever name they want, but it's for me the intersection of structure and spark. And the three behind it is also, you can call it people, process, technology, but you can. Today I have three girls in my life, my wife and two daughters. So three can be multiple things, right? But it and it's all about forging something, because a forge, it's about, how do you bring these different ideas. If I'm going to co-create something with Mark, how do I co-create and forge something new that creates a better tomorrow? So that was a concept behind which Three Foundry has been set up. And the focus, of course, of Three Foundry, like you mentioned in your introduction, is transformation, advisory, and innovation. And transformation is a double click would be, how can Three Foundry help with interim CIO and transformation roles, right? When I say advisory, it is, okay, how can Three Foundry assist enterprises, but also consulting companies uh, and boards in various technology-led transformations, right? And advisory in those angles. And three is, when I say innovation, it's not about how can Three Foundry innovate, but how can Three Foundry work in collaborating the startups with the enterprises. Because what I see is, there are amazing startups doing great things in their garage. And then there are enterprises who are actually struggling with the same problems, but they don't know who these startups are. There are forums, but by the time they go through the bureaucratic process of these forums, yeah, they don't know how to get to these startups. But if I can help in bringing these startups to life, or even connecting some of them to enterprises, then, well, innovation finally hits, it becomes a reality, right? It's not just then an idea. So that's the idea of Three Foundry. It just started it in May, but also my last few months, till say last week, been extremely busy changing diapers, and feeding my twin daughters that were born on the 10th of July. So that's what's been keeping me busy at this moment. But you asked me what's next, right? So what am I going to do with this? Well, the immediate focus, Mark, is to establish a revenue base across these three pillars. And once that revenue base is established in the coming quarter or the next two quarters, then the focus would be to start to grow it, but with an ecosystem and community approach, on how can I build an ecosystem of people and players, or a community of people and players who can collaborate and who can co-create, so that the same better tomorrow that I'm envisaging.
So cool. Well, first, congratulations, and we've spoken already, but congratulations on the two beautiful girls. And I'm really going to look forward to see what you're going to do with Tree Foundry. Would like to talk a bit about the past as well, because I think this is where people can really learn from you. You've been through all these really large carve-out programs and carve-in programs, and at Lipton, I think that's it's not the biggest one you've been in, because that's the one that we probably had at JD, but it's an incredible program where you build a new entire IT environment from scratch, and it was 15 months. And you were the technology program director there. It was on time and on budget. So how did you make that happen? What were like some of the toughest things that you came across, and yeah, what decisions did you have to make?
I think, I'll again break this down to three things that made Lipton a success, right? One is getting the right team in place. So when I joined Lipton on the program, and in the almost in the very first week, it was very clear that there were certain gaps. And when you do any of these kind of uh, transformation programs or journeys, you need to have the right people. 80% of it is about people, 20% is technology uh, to make it successful. And one of the early things I had to do was to be very provocative with the rest of my program leadership and to reason why I felt we did not have the right team. And the right team is two components. One is people, and two is mindset. So sometimes you have the wrong people, and then you need to change. Sometimes you actually have the right people, but the wrong mindset, and then you need to correct the mindset. And these were two things that we had to do very, very quickly and very early in as soon as I joined. And that was very important. Why? Because otherwise, when I joined, as the private equity, somebody from the private equity had given me the analogy, Niranjan, uh, you're going to come in, we are 3 months behind schedule and the train has not left the station, but we need to reach on time and we need to reach on budget, right? So the only way to do that is to start with getting your team right very, very quickly. And that immediately helps you with the right decisions and all the right momentum that you need after that. So that was one thing that um, I was given the freedom to do it, but two, I was able to do it, and that I think helped us significantly thereafter. Two was to keep things simple, because there is and I mean you smile about it, Mark, but in reality, the most complex programs can be really made successful if you just keep everything simple, right? And not too complicated, because emotions run high. Everybody wants to do things. Everything is important, but you have to make things simple. And I think there, quite a few people at Lipton played amazing roles. The private equity was constantly pushing on keeping things very simple. The CEO of Lipton, the then CEO, Natalie, she was really good in saying, guys, we need to simplify our portfolio, simplify our portfolio. How do you get from 21,000 SKUs or products to 2,500 products, right? Can can seem outrageous at the outset, but it drives so much of simplification, and that immediately helps the program gather more momentum. But that simplification then had to be brought in every angle of the program, and that was one of my roles also to say, okay, let's keep things simple and standard. How do you achieve more than 90% standard on SAP? Right? Which is what Lipton managed to get, almost I think 97% or 95% standard SAP. How do you make sure you have very clean core? How do you make sure you do not carry too much of technical debt in? All those basic things, but you try to embed them and you force it, right? Unpleasant conversations with very nice outcomes at the end. And the third, and these were two things, and the third piece which led to the success, at least from my personal side, Mark, was the support of family and friends. Yeah, because all these programs, 80% is people, 20% is tech, but another 100% factor to make these programs success is your support of your family and your friends. My wife and I, we were going through a very difficult time in our private life at that stage. You know about it. Uh, so getting up every day in the morning and still focusing on the program and doing things was really difficult, right? But the support I had from my wife, the support I had from my close friends, that was instrumental in me remaining sane, being able to take the right decisions, and then the program is still successful. So I will call it out to these three things: get your people right, keep things simple, and don't forget your family and friends. And then every program can be made successful.
Okay. I had to smile because you talk about keeping it simple, and this is a 100 million plus program, right? I've seen project managers smile
Yes.
at projects of 50K or 2 million or 5 million, and you talk about keeping it simple in 100 million. And I think,
Well,
plus,
100 is
yeah,
more than 100 million.
it was a lot more than that, but 100 million plus program. So that was,
Yes.
and I think that that's a good lesson that I think a lot of people can learn from you or this experience. The other one that I do want to dig a little deeper on is you said the right people make such a big difference.
Yes.
What is, I mean, of course, mindset is a big part of that, but what does it mean for a program of this size like this to have the right people on your team? What makes the right person?
Um, yes, okay, skill is important. I agree. Capability is important. Have they done these things before? Important. But many times, what's more important than all of that, almost every time, is do you trust the person, right? Um, if you don't trust, then even your best consultant, security consultant, is going to leave a gaping hole in your architecture, and you're going to be hit by a kind of a cyber issue, right? So the number one piece for me is trust, and this is trust which is blind trust, right? You just have to trust because you are getting into these programs where you cannot say, let me check for a week if I trust a person or not, because in that 1 week, the person could have taken some decisions that you're going to repent for the rest of the program. So getting that trust right early is very, very important. If you have people around you whom you trust, then these are people who will tell you what's right. They'll also tell you what's wrong, but more, and they are people who will do things not because they have done it in the past, but it's because it needs to be done, right? And then you are in the right company of the right people to make it happen. The second is that there should be people who will not just tell you the time, but will fix the clock. Because you will have lots of people in this consulting and advisory world. There are numerous people who will give you amazing PowerPoints and will tell you what the time is. But you know that as well. You can see the clock. You need people to fix the clock for you without you asking them to fix the clock, right? And that's the second type of people you need on the programs to make it successful. And the third mark is you need people who have a what I call as a tinge of pessimism, right? It's a strong word, but you don't want only people around you who will tell you everything's going right. You want to have some people around you who are going to tell you, well, something is going wrong, something is going wrong. And those kind of people are very important. They're generally not liked by others, but they are so important if I look at it from a leadership perspective, because they help you to spot, to find or pick those blind spots to make sure you address them and to be able to look at things across multiple perspectives. So you want to make sure you always have those few people who are able to be a bit more, say, critical about everything that's happening.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I think we shared war stories about the people that know how to tell time and only bring PowerPoints, right? So I fully understand what you mean with that. Getting the right people with the right mindset that are going to get their hands dirty and actually fix the problem, and
Yeah, yeah,
maybe even do it without telling you. Just fix it and get things done.
yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah.
And this program, it was delivered on time and on budget, as we said before. After that, you stayed at Lipton and you actually become the CIO, which is a huge transformation, right? You go from running a large program and then suddenly you're in an operational position, still stabilizing, but you're the CIO. How did that role change and how did you manage that transition?
Yeah, I think it almost felt like two sides of the same coin, right? I mean, as the program director, I was building the house, and then as a CIO, I moved into that house with all the disruption around it. I had to keep things stable, fix the electricity and the water and the internet, and make sure that the house is livable for everybody who comes in, and then they can thrive, right? Thereafter. Um, so yes, it was two sides of the same coin, but also then it made it very easy in terms of prioritization because once I took over the role as a CIO, the priority was very clear. First, stabilize, right? It's almost, again, going back to the principles of keeping it simple. You want to crawl, walk, and run. All right. So you will be tempted to run, but first stabilize. And as you stabilize, start building everything else that you need in order to be able to walk and run. Again, what probably helped me a lot, Mark, was the clarity the private equity also had in this space. So when I did take over the role, they were very clear on what they wanted to see at the end of 1 year, right? And then in some cases, I would say people link it back to an investment thesis. In some cases, it is whatever else. But if you have the clarity on, what good would look like at the end of 1 year, working towards it It's not, it's difficult, but it is not impossible.
So having
And
a
and the other piece that I would share there, Mark, is also to keep it very fact based and link it to certain KPIs, right? Because in program has set of KPIs. When you're a CIO for after that, the classic three KPIs that and if somebody would Google up, you would see is value, cost, and risk. I generally add two more KPIs to it. One is your people engagement score, and two is your business user satisfaction, right? Or business KPI. If you keep these five KPIs and then you start to see how you're progressing, then I think you address to what a CFO is wanting to see, you address what the CEO wants to see, you address what the CHRO wants to see, and you also can address what the private equity or the shareholders of a company would like to see.
yeah, I think that makes sense. So it makes it sound so simple. Being a CIO with just having a clear goal in mind, a goal at the end of the year, and having just five
Yeah,
key KPIs to measure against and
yeah.
track progress
And
against.
even if people can't give you that goal, you need to create it for yourself. Don't wait for somebody to give it to you.
Okay, I fully agree there. It's there's one thing I do want to get into a bit more about Lipton, and then we're going to move on to AI. So at Lipton, you stood up a complete new infrastructure environment, complete new SAP environment. You've just said you've been in SAP for, say, over 20 years, since 2003, starting with
Yep.
Accenture.
Yep.
In Lipton, you stood up a complete new S/4HANA environment on Rise, built it from scratch, and implemented in 15 months. I think a lot of people that are listening won't completely understand what that means or why that's such a credible big deal. But what does that mean? And why do you think that was successful?
I think the point of departure is very important to understand, right? To be able to appreciate the point of arrival. So Lipton, when it was carving out from Unilever, was moving from five different ERP systems, all SAP systems, but five different SAP systems, highly customized. So I would almost be tempted to add the word Z before S to say it's a Z SAP. Five different business processes, operating models, everything different. So no matter whether the listeners for this podcast know SAP or not, but they just need to imagine the five different large businesses totally adding up to around 2 billion, completely different technology, completely different process, completely different business operating model. And then all these five were moving into a new company, which is going to be Lipton Teas and Infusions, with a new operating model, with a standardized and simplified process across the board, with a new technology ground up, which would be a single, say, a single ERP across all the markets. And these are 32 odd markets, right? And not just for finance, but for all the processes, whether it's a um, demand planning, whether it's your order to cash, whether it is source to pay, whether it's a record to report. It's everything. A lot of SAP S/4HANA programs are first focused only on finance, and then they start to build on. This was everything. And it was in parallel to establishing a new cloud infrastructure, a new network infrastructure, a new end user computing space, a new cybersecurity landscape, all of that. So that I think that is where all the complexity, or that people look at, analysts see on a program. Well, this is where all the red flags was for them. Wow, this is really complex. Um, Now, yes, we managed to do that in 15 months. We managed to do that on budget from a on a timeline and a budget from the program perspective. The key elements I kind of already touched upon what made things successful, but I think a lot of credit I would say goes on to the business simplification that was being driven both by the private equity and by the C-suite, whether it was number of products, number of trading terms, right, all of that. Two is your ability to think out of the box. For example, when you say data, how do you make sure you cleanse your data and you do exactly what is right, what you need for the future, but you don't bring all the, say, the garbage of the past, right? Because then you're going to have that burden going on. I use Mark kind of a small framework. It's called Speedio. It's a different post of mine also on LinkedIn if you or the listeners want to see. But Speedio stands for software, process, extensions or enhancements that you do, your data, your integrations, and your operations. And if one kind of keeps looking at these, you keep your software as simple, as clean as possible, well, then you already have a good tick. If you can keep your process standard as simple, and in the future world, look at it with an AI lens, then again, it's clean, right? Data, don't forget that, right? And enhancements is, don't customize it because you're going to carry a lot of burden, but it's going to add a lot of cost as well for you, right? Both in the program and if not in the program, then after the program, right? And integrations is how do you talk across different processes, systems. Uh, you need to address that right at the beginning, and don't forget your operations, because you can do a program and then all those consultants will walk away from the building, but then somebody needs to run the show. While I was made to eat the pudding that I cooked, by becoming the CIO after being the director of the program. So I do understand the pain of my own decisions. But yeah, I would say focus on those operations as well. But that's how I think that program becomes successful.
Nice. And I really appreciate you talking about this. I think we see a lot of stories about small projects and startups in the news, and I think these are the stories that about these really large transformations that aren't told often enough. So thank you for that. Want to move on to AI a little bit?
Sure. AI.
You,
Everybody loves AI.
of course. So we have to talk about that, and really want to get your perspective. You already said that you have taken a course at INSEAD. You've also taken a course at MIT Sloan, and several on AI, right? And on the other hand, we see a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders that are struggling how they should approach AI today. So, how do you think they should go about that? Should they look at the executive programs like you've done? Should they be doing hands on learning themselves? Should they just seek outside expertise and rely on consultants? What do you think senior leaders, CIOs, maybe even CEOs or boards should go to their learning
Yeah.
for AI?
Uh, First of all, learning is something which is very personal, right? Everyone learns in a different manner. So I don't think there is one silver bullet on how do you train yourself on AI. I think what worked for me is what I can share, which is, um, you know, you leveraging the INSEADs and the MITs to get my conceptual thinking right, to building that, let's say, the boardroom picture, the high level hypothesis, to get that right. That's how I leveraged INSEAD and MIT. Two, I had to then do some hands-on work on it, right? So I do play around with the perplexities and the chat GPTs of the world, for example. But I had to play around to the extent I could to make sure I am able to understand and embed whatever I've learned conceptually, and then make sure, okay, it sticks, right? Otherwise, it's a nice PowerPoint that I would forget before the next session. So that's how the hands-on exploration for me happened. The third is I would, of course, rely on outside expertise. Again, not because I'm starting my own consulting company and it's important, no, but I think outside expertise, the outside and future back thinking is very powerful if you're able to tap into, let's say, your partner ecosystem, because without breaking certain confidentiality norms, everybody is willing to share because everybody is struggling, right? I'm part of a startup called Gale out of UK, Mark, and they organize these special interest group sessions for people from the industry without any consultants and sales pitches to come and just share about their own AI journeys and talk about it and learn from each other. And it's amazing how, you know, leading CPG and healthcare companies, the struggles they're all going through, but they're all willing to share and learn in a very safe environment. And that's another manner in which, leaders can, by making themselves a bit vulnerable, can learn a bit more about, hey, what is AI, and step away from all the flash and about the AI, and really get to a bit more of the reality of it.
Okay, makes sense. And you already talked about the Global AI Leaders Network. You're
Yeah.
a advisor for them.
Yeah.
You're also an advisor for Multistrats, which
Yeah.
is also an AI startup. So you're
Yeah.
advising two different startups
Yeah.
in the AI space.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of really big businesses on the inside as well over the past years. Um, where do you think that AI is really going to make the biggest difference in businesses over the next couple of years?
Uh, honestly, if I had the answer to that question, Mark, then I should be making an offer to buy Google Chrome, Perplexity, and ChatGPT at this moment, right? Forget my own valuation, but looking at how everybody else is making offers, I should be buying them right now. But I don't have an direct answer to that. But I would suggest something. I mean, there is of course a lot of talk about, hey, where do you see things, where is a big ROI going to happen and so on, right? While for instance, I do see a lot of positive use cases in the space of marketing in AI, like for content creation or personalization, right? Or in supply chain, there is a lot of good use cases, and these are use cases that are hitting the ground now. They're slowly proving themselves, but the key is, what we as leaders should be careful of is, hey, not make AI kind of the ROI game, right? To say, okay, traditionally all these technology investments come in, and then people ask, what is the return of investment? Is it 2 years, 3 years? I think AI is not something like that. This there's this person called Sol Rashidi, uh, who has who writes a lot of things about AI, and then she has this very nice analogy where she says, think of AI like running a winery. You have to invest before you see the harvest, right? And I love that, and I think that is key in this AI space. One needs to be patient and not just expect everything will have a immediate return of 2 to 3 years, just because that's what the analysts are saying. I would encourage leaders to look at AI with three different lenses. One is, look at what's your cultural ROI. Right? When I say cultural ROI, I would say, okay, is AI helping me in my organization to drive new ways of working? Am I able to take my decisions better? How's my talent engagement going on? Right? Because that's something that you should be able to measure, and that will help you play in the long term game. The second I would say is, look at it with a relevance ROI. So if I'm using AI today in my business, is it still keeping me modern and competitive in whatever business environment I am, right? And that's quite easy to see, because if you notice, all your competition is already using AI for customer service, and you still have a large call center sitting somewhere. Well, then you know that you are losing your competitive advantage. Three is then your financial ROI, because you have to finance it. You have to obviously look at it, but that is, I would say, today is a lagging indicator, right? Because that's where it will be measurable, and it could become a leading indicator, but not today. That's probably once the foundations are in place, and in a few years from now. But then you still look at a financial ROI, just to make sure you know where the money is going and what's actually happening around it. But don't link it to, I would say, the the immediate dollars and cents.
It's a long term game to play
Yeah,
AI.
there's a beautiful word that I've been I mean, quite a few people have been using this, and it's quite correct. It says AI fluency, right? And I think that's what boardrooms need to now develop, and they need to spread that across their organization, uh, right? So don't make AI the job of your IT function; you will fail. Educate everybody in the organization around AI, and make everybody fluent on AI, because that's when you will, accelerate your growth. But that means money spent immediately without an immediate return. But that's okay, according to me. That you have to do it. It's like training people on computers many years ago. That had to happen. People said, is computers a hype or not? And then look where we are today. I think AI is something similar. We just have to train people on.
Okay, no, and that makes sense. So, and then still all these, let's go to the back to the large businesses. They're all running these large multi-year programs where they're implementing a new software tool, or they're signing outsourcing contracts for 5 years. And technology is moving so fast. I mean, if you signed an outsourcing contract 3 years ago, AI wasn't there. I mean, ChatGPT 3.5 wasn't even out. How do you think businesses should think about these multi-year programs, these larger programs? And of course, carve-ins, carve-outs are going to happen, but should you invest into a 2-year program around a CRM? Should you sign a 5-year outsourcing deal with a third party? How should businesses think about all these multi-year, longer-term programs when technology is just going so incredibly fast right now?
You're spot on, Mark. You're spot on, right? Because the world's too fast for these 5-year roadmaps. According to me, that's obsolete. If somebody asks me for a 5-year roadmap, okay, I mean, come on, right? We even after 5 months, the world has already changed. So I think we need to really shift gears and start to think in potentially 90-day horizons, uh, and but with an evergreen transformation, right? So transformation is not a program; it's according to me like an operating model. It's a journey. It will keep on going, but look at it with 90-day horizons. So if that's how transformations will need to be thought of, right? So really turn it around. Um, and when you talk about these traditional IT contracts of support and all of that, I think, yeah, it cannot be 5-year contracts, according to me, right? The world would have changed drastically. So again, one needs to be able to look at it with maybe of it as maybe a 3-year contract, but also with a very clear exit clauses, with very clear reasons for, or very clear marks on, okay, how are they going to implement AI, how are they going to relentlessly automate and innovate. And it was there, but this was all hidden under so many clauses and sub clauses. In reality, both of us have seen, from both sides of the table, let's say, right, all of these automations never happened. Maybe the benefits were given to the clients, but in reality there were just more people, more junior people working on the background, right, somewhere. So it is going to change. The way contracting is being done will change, has to change. But importantly, the way people look at programs, transformation programs, and look at thereafter the support for it. But keep it modular, because who knows, and probably in 3 years' time, you need to get rid of something and do something else. But some investments will not change, right? You're not going to get rid of a massive Microsoft, SAP infrastructure, right? So that's why I call it evergreen transformation. But you need to be able to build it in such a way, like a Lego block, that you're constantly able to improvise on top of it.
Exactly, because even those large scale providers are continuously coming out with AI updates and changes and new ideas. And even Microsoft and SAP are not right now where they were 3 years ago or 5 years ago. The world has really changed.
Well, I think everybody, it's a bit of a fad, right? To say, okay, AI, everybody is using the word AI. It's too loosely being used today. So it's a bit of a caution that I would just throw in the air for people. Whenever you're talking to product companies or consulting providers who say it's AI, ask them, what do you really mean by AI? Probably they're just talking about some algorithms, net, which have existed for many, many years now.
Possibly true. Possibly true. Okay, I would love to, as the last section of this, talk a bit more about your leadership. I mean, you've grown from starting as a consultant well over 20 years ago to a CIO, leading large transformation programs. I think along the way, you said in our pre-discussion, you don't just believe in talk about success, also about setbacks. So what is a good example of one of the setbacks that you can and want to talk about that didn't really go as planned, and what have you learned from that?
I mean, there were numerous setbacks. I think I probably have more setbacks than successes in my life. And and if you don't have a setback, you don't have a success. But each setback, I've learned something different. I think something that I always will remember. Um, you know, many years ago, we were doing this massive program around SAP in a CPG company in Indonesia. Massive program, right? Everybody was moving into SAP, and this is many years ago, right? And as consultants, I was one of the consultants on the program. We wrapped up the program on time, I think potentially within budget. The company was on SAP, and then we left. And we thought it was a great success. We had a nice celebration as well, and then we moved on to the next one. But we realized that most people were not using it. We realized that much later, that there was still lots of Excel sheets and that were actually happening. And then something like an SAP ERP was just becoming a data entry product where people were just keying in the things, but everything else, all the calculations, everything was happening outside of SAP. And we're thinking, why? I mean, did we configure it correctly? Yes. Did we test it? Yes. So why is it not working? And it was not working because we did not focus on change management. It was not working because we took change management as a work stream. And I still see that happening in so many programs, right? Which saddens me. But that is change management. When it becomes a work stream, we just try to train people. When we say, okay, have you gone through it? Have you looked at the PowerPoint as consultants? Well, we've done it. We have a score of 3 out of 5. Okay, let's go. Let's move on. Go live. Boom. And then all the consultants are gone. And the poor users are looking at it to say, okay, what did I really learn now? But how am I going to do this scenario? But there is nobody to ask. Now you need to pay more in order to get it fixed. So net, you start to go back to your old habits of Excel sheets or whatever. And that's a setback I've seen so many years ago when it hit me hard on that specific implementation in Indonesia. We managed to turn it around, but I've seen that happen so many times after that. So if there's a setback that I've learned, I think what I learned is do not underestimate the impact of change management and do your utmost to really uh, give it the right value it deserves in programs, right? I'm doing a kind of a survey about key reasons for success of enterprise transformation programs, and you won't believe it, Mark, but change management is literally in the top three, right? It's used in different words and facets, but it's almost there on the top three. So that's, I would say, was one of my biggest setbacks then in Indonesia, which many years ago, which I still remember, very fresh, but unfortunately have seen that repeat many times. So in my new Avatar and 3 Foundry, I think it's a commitment to myself that I will make to say, okay, how can I really, be an ambassador for change management in its true sense in programs, so that we can at least move the needle 1 degree.
Yeah, no, and I've seen that in way too many programs, especially in technology. People think they implement technology and it's going to work, and they forget that there's actually people somewhere that
People.
need to go and use it and understand it and work with it and make this part of their daily lives.
And Mark, it's so true when they say technology doesn't fail because of code, right? It fails because of people.
Yeah, no, so true. Okay, and moving on. And this is also about your leadership. You've worked in so many different countries all over the world. You've worked in CPG companies, in consulting, in PE-backed enterprises. Which of those did you like the most, and which did you find the most challenging,
Uh,
and why is that?
I liked all of them. I think I liked all of them. I think I've been fortunate to have had the experience of working with leading consulting companies and consumer goods companies and in a private equity environment. So I think it's very difficult for me to say which I would like more. However, what I find the most challenging is private equity. I mean, out and out. It's most challenging, and in the sense probably gets the most of my adrenaline going. It's because of also the intensity and the intentionality behind having an impact, right? It's like the clock is always ticking when you're with a private equity, and it's ticking faster than you think it's ticking. So the impact that you think you need to have in 1 week's time is probably already today that you need to create. So yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes, but at the same time, it can be quite rewarding.
Pressure is always on
Pressure
in
is always on.
private equity.
Pressure is
Nice.
always on.
Okay, so then to wrap up, there's one question. We have a lot of people listening to the show. A lot of them are maybe CTOs in startups or working in smaller companies. They haven't yet reached the CIO status or the large scale up status that you've reached. What is a single piece of advice that you would give to them?
Um, to be honest to yourself, right? Be authentic. Be who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. Again, it goes back to my views of keeping things simple. Don't chase the dream of becoming a CIO. You might be very disappointed at the end. Look at it always as a pit stop. Your journey needs to be more important than your destination. So if you are thinking CIO or CTO is your destination, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint them by saying you'll be disheartened when you get there. So make sure that's just a pit stop. But to get there, yes, you need to do what you need to do, but keep it simple, keep it authentic. Be very clear what your values are. Be very clear what your leadership style is. Understand where the gaps are, fix it. So be honest about yourself, right? And I think also be willing to learn in the process. Be very open to feedback. Be very take help. Um, get help if you need to get help. It's not easy. The journey is not easy. It gets only tougher and tougher. So get help. That's everybody gets help. So there's nothing bad about it.
So, honesty to yourself,
Yeah,
enjoy the journey, and seek help, find
absolutely,
outside help when
absolutely,
you need it.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much for this discussion. It was really valuable. If people want to find you or learn more about you, where can they go? Where can they find more about you online?
LinkedIn, just drop me a message. I think that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. Just drop me a message on LinkedIn, and then we take it from.
Okay, thank you very much. It was really cool having you on. Thanks, Niranjan.
Thank you, Mark. Lovely having this conversation with you, and good luck with your other podcasts on the CTO Compass.
Thank you.
Take care, Mark.
As we wrap up another episode of the CTO Compass, thank you for taking the time to invest in you. The speed at which tech and AI develop is increasing, demanding a new era of leaders in tech. Leaders that can juggle team and culture, code and infra, cyber and compliance, all whilst working closely with board members and stakeholders. We're here to help you learn from others, set your own goals, and navigate your own journey. And until next time, keep learning, keep pushing, and never stop growing.